Hey everybody, welcome to Think Your Way to an Epic Life, and we have a real special guest today. This is the first guest that I don't know really well, so it's kind of a cool thing to be able to get to know somebody by being the one asking all the questions. So I think I've got the upper hand here, and that's kind of cool. But I'm really looking forward to getting to know Kellie Tinnin. Kellie, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so let's start at the beginning, how we do all these.
Okay.
Tell me about where you were born and what your childhood was like.
Yeah, so actually I was born here in Albuquerque. I spent the first 8 years of my life growing up in the East Mountains before moving to, making quite a climate change actually, moving to Yuma, Arizona, the so-called lettuce capital of the world. It's really hot there. And I spent the rest of my childhood and early adult life there before moving back here in 2005. I actually came to work for my father's specialty construction firm. My dad, by trade, was a highway contractor. He was actually licensed in road work and vertical construction, and he needed some help growing his business. And so that's how I ended up back here, and I've never left.
Wow. Okay. What an honor to have your dad call you and say, hey, I need help in my business.
Yeah, it was interesting because we would talk a lot, and we had a pretty good relationship. Once I got older, it probably happens in a lot of instances, but once I got older, we had a really good relationship, and we would talk a lot, and he would tell me, oh, I'm struggling with this or that, and I was like, well, I can help you with that. I can help you with that. And then one day he finally was just like, why don't you move back here and help me? And I was like, okay. And that's how it happened.
Wow. So how many, what were some of the things that he had you do?
So he was really good at the field work in terms of executing things in the field that had to happen. And he wasn't good with anything administratively, anything process-wise in terms of building his office, building structure around, employee boundaries, things down to like turning in your time on time so we can issue paychecks and things like that. So I was able to really help him streamline that process. And we actually, in the roughly 2 years that I worked for him, we grew from I'd say 2.5, because he had a contractor that worked for him off and on, from 2.5, no, it was 3 people, to, I think there was 5 or 7. By the time I ended up actually shutting down his business because he passed away. But by that time, yeah, we had grown substantially and were on track to gross $5 million in revenue that last year. So,
Oh my gosh, that was an awful lot in that whole sentence right there.
yeah.
Wow. So you didn't have a great relationship with your dad when you were young.
Yeah.
You had a great relationship as you got older. How grateful are you that you got to spend those years working with him?
Oh gosh. Hopefully I don't cry. Really grateful, because I think for him, it was something that he really valued, because my parents had a really contentious divorce, and we spent time with him as children, but as a lot of people know in divorced families, like how that can be. And I hate to say it this way, but sometimes maybe for men, like in divorce situations, like that whole situation, that dynamic is a little bit different, especially like he had 2 girls. So yeah, as I got older and we were able to relate a little bit more, our relationship became really close. And I know I was one of the only people who could really tell him how it was. Like, we shouldn't be going down this path, or what are you doing? Like, that's so silly. What are you doing? And so we really had that kind of relationship. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that was one of the last things that he was left with.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So you made this huge move. You came down, you're doing your job. You're excelling at your job. Everything's going right. And then you lose your dad.
Yeah, suddenly, actually. Suddenly. He just died of heart failure one day. He Like literally what happened is he didn't show up to work.
Oh my God.
And I went out, I went out to his house, which is odd for me because he lived way out in the East Mountains. Like it was a trek to get there, and it was like, oh, you got to drive out there, okay. But I went out there. It was just one of those weird things where the universe just does weird things for you. And I went out there when he didn't show up, and I was the one who found him.
Gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So I had somebody say something the other day, and I don't think I've ever cussed on this podcast before, but I just thought it was so powerful. She said, I don't know why you have to go through the stuff to get to the good stuff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The irony is if none of that happened, I wouldn't be where I am, which sounds like a crappy thing to say because it was honestly those 2 to 3 years after he died were so horrible for me. So horrible. Just like a hole like you never think you're going to get out of. And, and then you do, like slowly. And yeah, I mean, I'm in a place now that is 1,000 times better than where I was then. And so it's weird how that happens, and it sounds very cliche. And when you're in the moment, you're, like you want to give people the middle finger, like, but yeah, it's really true.
Well, how appropriate, because this is called Think Your Way to an Epic Life.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're living an epic life now.
Oh, absolutely.
And you went through hell on earth.
Well, yeah. I mean, and what's funny about it is I hate to talk about it sometimes because I feel like I'm not the only one.
Right.
Like I'm not. Everybody has gone through garbage, and there are people even in my situation. And let me tell you, like it was pretty crappy at the time. Have gone through worse.
Absolutely.
So I hate being like, oh, I had such this hard time because it's like I wasn't living in a ditch or anything, but. Yeah, things have just changed substantially for me.
How?
Well, I met my husband, for one, and it sounds, again, cliche to say, but when they say to marry someone who's better than you, like, that's really the truth, because, like, he's what I needed. Well, he is what I need in terms of, like, his personality is very... I don't know if complimentary is the word, but it's very fitting to what I need. Like he's really changed my mindset, and I think it's just a way he grew up in the culture that he grew up in. It's completely different than what I did.
We need to be exposed to people that are so different from us, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can learn from everyone.
Oh, totally. I mean, that's why I kind of joke and I say travel, and I've been a lot of places, but I wouldn't say like I'm like super well traveled. But I've been to several countries, and I travel, honestly, like I joke and I say it's like the best thing because you learn that people are living their lives differently than you, and it's working. Mm-hmm. There's more than one way to get there.
Yes, and if you can pick and choose the pieces from all the different places, pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk like, and I'm not going to take you down a hole you don't want to go down, but I want to talk about the climb out of the hole that you were in, and how did you do it? You said you met your husband, but that was just one sentence. Yeah.
Well, and he was one piece of it that came much later. It was interesting. It just was really a slow climb. I was in a really dark place for a while. I mean, his estate got sued, and there was a lot of things that just compounded on top of that were like layers on top of this cake or this onion you just had to peel back. And I had a bunch of people, like family, telling me you gotta stop, like you gotta get out of this, like you gotta get out of this, and it's not that easy. So I can relate to people that have those issues in terms of like depression and things that they just can't get around, because it just takes time. And I don't know how to explain it, but it really started with just kind of the people I was surrounding myself with. And slowly things started to shift, and it was slow. It took a long time to get here, but it really came down to, the people that I started to surround myself with, the things that I started to do, and slowly things started to progress.
Very good. Well, it sounds like you've gotten to a great place. So you have mentioned that the people you surround yourself with, you've mentioned that several times. Why is that so important?
Well, because I think we feed off of each other. And if you hang out with people that are constantly in the dumps, like you start to wear the same colors, you start to do the same things. And so I think it's important to hang out with people and to surround yourself with people that, are a step above you, so to speak. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but people, I had a boss tell me, you know, Bridget Gilbert.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and she's a good friend and a mentor of mine still to this day. And I worked for her for a number of years. And she told me one day, and I was telling somebody this the other day and it stuck with me, but she told me, you are the only person I've ever met who is as mean to yourself as you are. She said, you are so mean to yourself. And like, even to this day, that sticks with me, because I think I started to surround myself with people that saw what I really was, and it wasn't what I was seeing in myself at the time. They saw a good person, a hard worker. They saw somebody who was, kind and cared about people. And I don't think I saw that in myself at the time. And yeah, so I guess I finally started to believe them at some point.
Okay. So when she confronted you that way, and I can just see her doing it.
Yeah.
When she confronted you that way, what did you think? Did you believe her at first?
Well, yeah, I did, because she was right. So yeah, I did believe her. Believing her and getting yourself out of the cycle are sometimes two different things. And right. It just takes a while. But yeah, even to this day, and that was years ago, and it still sticks with me. I still remember that.
So how do you treat yourself now?
Completely different. I try to, and I still get stuck. We still get stuck in that cycle that we're used to, but I tend to give myself a lot more grace now. And I think I also recognize in other people that other people, like what we see on the outside isn't necessarily what's going on inside. And so to realize that other people are, they're human, they're imperfect, like we all are. And so, we're all just existing, trying to put our best face forward when we don't really know what's going on inside.
Very true. Very true. So you have some lessons for our audience, right?
Yeah.
It starts off that you during that really, really dark time.
Yeah.
What kept you? What kept you from taking your own life or just giving up?
I don't know, honestly. It's interesting because I have thought about that, because I've dealt with some suicide in my family as well, or some attempts at that. Not myself, but some other individuals, and I don't know. I don't know what the line in the sand is, because it's interesting, because I've had this conversation with people and I've said, I said there were times when I didn't want to get up anymore, right, but I had to get up. I had to. And so I don't know what that secret sauce is. I wish I did. But it was just one of those things. Like, yeah, there were times I didn't want to get up. There were times that, I cried going to work. Like, there were times I cried in the bathroom at work. There are times I still do sometimes. But I had to get up. I had to keep getting up.
So just get up. Just get up.
Yeah, and maybe that's it. Sometimes you just got it. You just have to.
You just have to move, no matter what you feel like, and then eventually.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that was it for me. Like I just kept getting up, and it stunk for a long time, for years. It stunk, and finally, it just gradually got better.
Okay, so. The gradual, how far along your line of climbing out of the pit were you when you met your husband?
Probably about halfway. And it's funny because he jokes with me still to this day. He's like, "You didn't like me when you first met me," and I was like, "That's not true." He's like, "No, you didn't like me." I'm like, "Whatever." But it took a long time. And it took, even in our relationship, it took us several years. And he kept that ice pick sharp and kept chopping away at it. I don't know why, but he did. Some days he probably doesn't know why either, but...
Oh my gosh. So he was relentless.
Oh my gosh. Yes. He would show up at my house like with random stuff all the time. I'm like, why are you here? Like, what are you doing? But then even after we were in a relationship and we were married, like, yeah, there were some times that were pretty nasty. And yeah, I said after about 2 years, I said, "Oh, we don't want to kill each other anymore. We're good."
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough having a brand new roommate that it's a lot.
Yeah.
So in what ways did he help carry you the rest of that way?
Well, it's interesting because he was raised in a different culture than I was. And I honestly think that had a lot to do with it. So he was raised, his family was Buddhist because they were Japanese. And, that's not the only reason to be Buddhist, but that's how they were raised. And that's a different culture in itself. If you've ever been there, it's, to me, just like a magical experience. The people in the culture are completely different. They value different things. And I'm not saying that what we value is bad or good. It's just different.
Right.
He just always had a different way of seeing things. He's like, well, instead of thinking of this way, like, why don't you think of this problem this way? And after a while, it was just kind of like, yeah, okay. Well, why don't I start thinking of things this way? Or, if there was an obstacle, he would say, okay, well, you're not going to get there on this road, but what other road are you going to take? And that was really helpful for me because I would ruminate on a lot of things over and over again. And it was helpful because it would kind of get me out of that cycle and kind of start a new tape, so to speak.
Okay. So he's kind of your hero now?
Oh, well, don't give him a big head or anything. But yeah, absolutely. Hands down. Like, he's the best person I've ever met.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool that the best person you ever met came and found you and helped lead you to this life that you're enjoying now.
Yeah. Oh, see, it gets me all upset. So don't tell him because I don't want him to get.
Okay, you can't watch this part. Just don't watch this part. So tell me about your work life. Just go on a whole different track.
So I joke and I say I'm a recovering realtor because I spent, since 2008, I spent my career in real estate. And I actually still do a lot of work in the real estate industry. So I kind of transitioned to this learning and development piece and worked for our local association doing training, professional development, and that sort of stuff. And decided to go out on my own in 2020 so that I would have the opportunity to work with other industries and learn about other industries. I really feel like I'm a lifelong learner, and I like to see how other industries operate, like what their challenges are. And the irony is no matter what industry, I found that everybody pretty much kind of struggles with the same things. But it's been neat to be exposed and to learn about different industries and just be able to dabble in different types of work. So what I'm currently doing now is learning and development consulting. So I have my own consulting practice, and I consult inside the real estate industry doing training, train the trainer type stuff, course development, and I also do that outside of the real estate industry.
Okay, so who's your biggest client?
Well, I just finished up a big project with a team of people that I was working on for one of our national labs. I just finished that up. And I still do a lot of work for my former employer, the Greater Albuquerque Association of Realtors. I still have a good relationship with them and do some work and help them out as well. And occasionally show up at their events and hang out and say hello. So they're another big supporter of me as well.
Right.
Yeah.
We actually had Kent here a couple weeks ago.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. What a good man. That's, that team, it had to be exciting to leave and do your own thing, but it also had to be difficult to leave that tight knit of a group.
Yeah, it was, because we all were really tight and everybody got along really well, which is important, but everybody kind of worked like a well-oiled machine in terms of everybody's wheel moved the way that it was supposed to, and that worked really well. And so that was hard. Mm-hmm. But I still go and see them, so it's not too bad.
They can't get rid of me.
No,
that's cool.
Unfortunately,
no, I'm sure they don't feel that way.
Yeah,
I'm sure they don't, or they wouldn't keep hiring you.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
Right.
No, I know. Yeah, I know. I mean, I know the feeling is mutual. Because exactly. They wouldn't keep hiring me, but they're always happy to chat and stuff.
So, who is your perfect client?
I like to work with people, and it sounds weird to say, that are like me in a way. I tend to work with small businesses a little bit better, just because they have a need sometimes that I can fill. Whereas larger organizations, they may have in-house resources that they use. But I like to work with individuals that are open-minded, open to try new techniques and new procedures, who are open to brainstorming. I believe that I'm not the smartest person in the room, and so being able to collaborate with people sometimes brings out a better product. So people who are open to that, who are open to collaboration, who are open to being flexible, who are open to being creative, and really just who are really determined to create the best product possible or the best outcome possible for their organization. So
what is the need that you fill?
It really depends. A lot of the need I fill is through process improvement. And so that could be, there could be an issue with a process, and maybe customers' needs aren't getting met, and maybe that's a training need that needs to be filled. Or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's as simple as, like we just need to route it from point A to point B. And so it just really depends, but that's probably the biggest need. The biggest need is I'm a problem solver. So people, when you're in even myself with my own organization, when you're in it, you have blind spots. And so I'm really there to be that neutral party, not to criticize, but to say, hey, have you thought about it this way? Do you see this? And sometimes you just don't, because your mindset and your thought process is really on something completely different. And so, I mean, I'm there to help solve problems and to help you see your blind spots.
Well, that's pretty cool. So what are you most proud of?
Wow. I mean, the fact that really I just was able to go out and start my own business in general. I think because so many people want to do that and are afraid. And don't get me wrong, I'm afraid every day. Imposter syndrome is a real thing. I deal with that. But again, you just got to keep going. You just got to keep moving one foot in front of the other. And I'm really proud of the fact that I've been able to generate my own business and sustain my own business that's successful and growing.
That is very cool. So what is some of the best advice you've ever received?
Oh, wow. I mean, I've received a lot of good advice. I really think the comment from Bridget really just sticks with me. And that was, it wasn't directed in a piece of advice, really, but it was something to really think about. And that's something that sticks with me. It's hard to pinpoint one piece because I've received so many pieces of good advice. But that was something that really stuck with me. And it wasn't framed in a I'm giving you advice sort of way. It was kind of framed in a like, what are you doing kind of way. But it really changed my thought process.
And so what would you tell someone else who, if you're honest with yourself, you really are mean to yourself?
Yeah.
I mean, like if anyone else had ever talked to you the way you used to talk to you, would you be around them?
Oh gosh, no. No, that's the irony is no, I would be like, oh, they're horrible. Like, what are you doing? Yeah, no. But yet here we are, you know, what we do. We treat ourselves horrible. And I think that's another thing too, to point out is one thing I started doing is I'm kinder to myself. I try to watch what I eat, but I love food. So, you know, that's a hard line to teeter every now and then. But I do a lot of yoga, and yoga was another thing that really changed my life too, which sounds very foo-foo, but it really does. And I try to work out, and we do things with family, like we ride bikes on Sundays with a group of family members and those sorts of things.
That is taking care of yourself.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Any advice you have for people, parting advice about how to live their own epic life?
Well, my life is not your life. So you have to find what works for you. I mean, I think that's probably the biggest piece of advice, and putting one foot in front of the other. And I wish I had some advice about how to do that. And I just don't know. It was just one of those innate things where it's like, I just got to keep getting up. I just got to keep getting up. So you have to just keep getting up. It does get better. And I'm not going to say, oh yeah, it'll get better. It gets better. But it does, but it stinks too. You just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you have to find your own path.
Very good advice. Thank you so much for coming and being on the podcast.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Bye-bye.